A very good morning to you and welcome to Global Morning. My name is Godwin Sunday. At this moment, we'll be talking with Phil Roberts, who is the director of Nigerian Nigeria. I beg your pardon, just a minute. So we'll just get Director General of the Chinese Tourism Promoters Initiative. I will be talking about tourism in Nigeria, how far we've come. Let's x-ray the tourism sector in Nigeria, especially looking at the Nigerian-China partnership on sustainable development in a country. But first, you're welcome to Global Morning, Phil Roberts.
Thank you so much for bringing me on the show.
All right, so Phil, let's delve into this conversation. First, we've still Nigerian government try to have a conversation and partnership with other countries in terms of business conversation, but then we don't get to hear more on tourism light even at this point of time. But before we delve into that part of the conversation, because you're already smiling, bring us up to speed. To the average man on the street, what is tourism?
Thanks so much, Mr. Godwin. So tourism, in a layman's word, is when you travel from a destination to another destination and you're not going there to live, you're just going there to spend a period of time and you come back to your base. That is tourism. You go for business, you go for leisure, you go for sports, you go for anything that makes you go and come back in just a period of time. You're not going there to stay. So that's called tourism. And if you notice, people will travel for tourism, and the embassies give you tourism visas. It's just designed for maybe like 3 weeks or 1 month, kinda. So you're going for that leisure to ease your stress or do business or whatever, and you're back to your base. So that is what tourism is.
All right. So Phil, to a very large extent, China all of a sudden found interest in Nigeria, and of course they've talked about Nigerian artists and how to promote Nigerian, and the Chinese are talking about promoting Nigerian culture, Nigerian some of even the tea, the Chinese tea in Nigeria, which I know you organized something in that
Chinese tea ceremony.
But looking at all of this, why the sudden switch from Chinese government to want to partner with Nigerian in terms of tourism development?
It's just like when the media decides to make a story popular, you see it everywhere. So the Chinese government has been in partnership with different African countries and different governments of the world. What is making this more prominent is that the media has decided to touch light on it and make it more visible. Now, the Chinese have some projects and programs that they're promoting. First of all, the first one is the FOCAC. FOCAC is the Forum for China-Africa Cooperation, which Mr. President was in China, in Beijing, last year, September, to obtain that loan that was brought back to Nigeria that was used for infrastructure, mining, and that was when they signed the currency swap deal with CBN and all of that. That's for the FOCAC. So the Chinese is using the FOCAC to support African countries who need some various support from the Chinese government and all of that, to see how they can help them gain their ground. Then another one is the BRI. So the BRI is the Belt and Road initiative of the Chinese government. So the Belt and Road initiative of the Chinese government is a project designed for the belt is countries that are connected to China through the sea, through water, ocean. Then the road is countries that are connected to China via road. So that's what's called the Belt and Road Initiative. So the Chinese is using that to see how they can empower and support different countries of the world, to see how they can bring them up to speed. Because China is overpopulated, a country that is filled with more than 1 billion people. You're supposed to know that they will look for different things to see how they can help their people. That is a government that is working. That is a system that is working. They are looking at for what they can do to support their people. So that's why you see a lot of Chinese are populated everywhere, spreading out, looking for how they can get more support for their people, how they can get more food, more mineral resources and all of that, because everything has been pushed up, and it's been exhausted. So they're trying to see how they can get a whole lot to sustain their economy. And Chinese is not looking at what they can do for sustainability today. Chinese is looking at what they can do for sustainability for the next 100 years to come. So that is how they think. Their thinking is. And you should tell someone in my travel and my stay in China, there's something beautiful about China that Chinese that I found out is that the Chinese government will look at your idea. You have an idea, they will ask you questions, put it in a panel, and if you pass through, they give you funding. Like right now, like in Nigeria, we have different local governments in Nigeria. So the Chinese government gives each local government funding for their local government projects. So each local government must do a project every year. So imagine a local government deciding that they want to do toothpick, and that toothpick they need $500 million. The Chinese government, through their various support systems, will give the local government that $500 million. And as a local government, they also have monetary evaluation systems that you will bring back that money to the government. You understand? And they do it in a way that if you meet up the target, next year when you ask for more, your budget is increased. You understand? That's why you see the Chinese are in every nook and cranny of the world, trying to see how they can market, how they can push and all of that, and get more opportunities to China.
All right, so Phil, when we started the conversation, I did mention that Nigerian, in terms of partnership, Nigerian government is, last I checked, the Ministry of Tourism, created by President Buhari Muhammadu, immediate past president of Nigeria, was merged with other ministries in order to help reduce costing and also ensure productivity. That was one of the reasons that was given by the President Bola Tinubu's administration. But in terms of tourism, we've not seen Nigerian government partner with other countries in order to grow our tourism sector. Rather, we're seeing other countries trying to partner with Nigeria in order to grow the tourism sector. At this point in time, is it that Nigerians don't know what we have in our country, or we're not ready to utilize some of the things that we have in order to expand the frontiers of conversation around tourism in Nigeria?
So one of the things that Mr. President did, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, what he did when he came into power was establishing the Ministry of Tourism, and that was a game changer for tourism, because the tourism is a major gold mine. But at the end of the day, I can't tell what really happened. The ministry was now merged with the Ministry of Culture, with the Ministry of Arts, Culture, Tourism, Creative Economy. You merge like 4 major ministries together as one, and you don't even have a Minister of States for that ministry. So everything under the Ministry of Tourism, blah blah blah, is under the Minister of which is Barrister Hanana Tun. And if you notice, she's always traveling because the workload is really so much. Now, I used to say that until a government finds an importance on a particular thing, they will not give it attention. Now, the reason why it looks as if tourism in Nigeria has not really gotten to where it is because so much importance has not been given into it. Now, when the minister was made the Minister of Tourism, Minister Lola Adejon, she was doing everything to make sure that tourism thrives. So the news about Nigerian tourism was now growing. And all of a sudden, I don't know who gave that advice, they merged the ministries. Now, you see, tourism has now a little bit calmed down. So that is the issue we are now having in tourism. Now, in tourism, we have what we call inbound tourism and outbound tourism. So inbound is when you decide to promote your tourism opportunities, tourism offerings, do a whole lot in your own country, in your own space. Now, outbound is when you decide to take what you have and take it outside to go promote and let people come into your country. Now, some of these countries that come to Nigeria to market their tourism do what we call outbound tourism. So they are coming to Nigeria to market their products and tell you, oh, come to Dubai and see what we have. Come to China and see what we have. Come to Singapore, come to this, come to that. They are inviting you to come to those countries to see their own tourism. So it's not their fault that you don't want to sell your own tourism potentials. Nigeria is blessed with so many tourism opportunities. When I did tourism across the Niger, trekking from Abuja to Delta, what was I trying to do? I was trying to promote the Nigeria tourism opportunities and the offerings we have, the untapped potentials of Nigerian tourism. And that project was partnered by the Ministry of Tourism, and the pictures and videos were everywhere. So we were trying to see how we can showcase Nigerian tourism to the world, our inbound tourism opportunities. So as private sector, there is little you can do, but the government has so much to do, because the job of the government in promoting tourism is to create an enabling environment for the private sector to thrive. So the ease of doing tourism business also lies in the hand of the government. So until the government has decided to see what they can do in showcasing and supporting tourism, that is when you will see more of all these things you're saying, because there's little that the private sector can do. Of course, you see how the economy is. A lot of people have not eaten, and tourism is designed for promotion. The only way tourism can work is promotion. You use your money to promote tourism. You need to put the various destinations and locations, put them on TV. It's only government that had that kind of funding. You see, they create it in their budget. The private sector can do little. So no matter what you can do as a private sector, if the government does not create that opportunity for you to thrive in supporting tourism, it won't work. Why tourism is working in a couple of all these countries is because the government has designed it in a way that the private sector is also empowered to promote tourism. If you go to China, one of the major things China does not joke with is infrastructural tourism. Now, what does China do? When you go to China, you see different types of infrastructures. The pictures are everywhere on social media. You say, oh, China built this. Oh, China, have you seen this bridge? This suspended bridge is in China. Have you seen this one? Is in China. So those are some of the opportunities that China uses to promote themselves. And you want to just go and see those magnificent buildings. Dubai also does that. So when you come to China to see all those buildings, you fly into China, you're spending money. You eat their food tourism, you're spending money. You will take transportation around, you're spending money. You will sleep in a hotel, you're spending money. The tour guide that will take you around, you're also spending money. So this is where tourism thrives, and that is how to make money. So what China also does is that they work closely with their real estate industry. If you go to China, maybe in the whole of Wuse 2 is a particular building. Maybe you're driving through Panes, and on the right side of the road, you see this same kind of building. You're driving on the stretch, it's the same type of building that is there. They make sure they work with the real estate companies to design what they want, and the real estate companies will be selling while the government are giving them the support to have the land and all of that. So that is what China also do. So for their urban planning, regional planning, building of those magnificent houses and high risings that you see, they partner and work closely with the real estate.
And as Nigeria as it stands, whether we're not ready for that conversation?
I wouldn't say Nigeria is not ready for that conversation, because most times the way Nigeria works, you need a push, somebody to just come in and say this is the focus, and they will get there. But with what I see now in the Ministry of Arts, Culture, Tourism and Creative Economy, I'm not sure that they are ready to give tourism that support, because what they are doing mostly is promoting arts, promoting culture, and even in the creative economy, I'm trying to still understand what they are doing. You understand? And don't forget, these ministers are also political appointees. They also have their political whatever. They have done 2 years in office, and in the usual calculation, from the third year, they have entered campaign. So you now notice that so much cannot be done. So I will also want to use this opportunity to still advise Mr. President that in his second term, because you know the Nigerian syndrome, they must run 8 years. Yeah. So in his second term, he should reconsider bringing a minister for tourism. That office needs to function. So I think we still need a minister. If we want tourism to thrive, we must have a minister for tourism, because the job of the tourism industry is to sell and promote the packages of culture, arts, creative economy. That is what tourism is.
But could it be that the Nigerian is not ripe for tourism conversation, first? Two, could it be that Nigeria cannot compete with other countries in terms of its tourism potentials? Because looking at all of this concern and talking about sustainable development, especially when you talk about the fact that the economy is a bit tough right now, could it be that some of these factors are one of the reasons why the government is not looking inward into inbound tourism as it stands right now?
So one thing about tourism is that tourism is a gold mine. Tourism is in your everyday life. You see, me coming live on your station is what we call broadcast tourism.
There's the broadcast tourism.
Of course, that's what I'm saying. Tourism is like, we have food tourism, which is gastronomy. We have sports tourism. We have infrastructural tourism. We have transportation tourism. We have medical tourism. You know, I can go on and on.
On a lighter note, there should be spiritual tourism too.
No, it's not called spiritual tourism. It's called religious tourism.
Okay.
Because that was what what's this man in Lagos at that? TB Joshua was doing. You travel all the way into Lagos to come and attend TB Joshua's program. You go to his church, you watch the miracle and healing. And when you travel from South Africa to Nigeria in Lagos, he has hotels there. People stay in the hotel. Some people will stay there for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before they are being delivered. And they spend money. They spend money there, they buy food, they do this, they do that. All those things is what we call religious tourism. Now, people from Nigeria travel to Israel to go and see where Jesus was born, where Jesus was buried. People travel from Nigeria to Mecca. All of that, Saudi and all, that is what we call religious tourism. So tourism is the lowest hanging fruit that a government can use in making money. All you need to do is just create a story around it. You travel to Jerusalem and they tell you this is where Jesus was born, this is where this person died. Were you there? They just create a story around it, make it beautiful, and that is tourism. People will now fly into those countries just to hear those stories and see. So that is another major form of tourism. So what incites you, what makes you see what you don't know, what brings you into another realm of knowledge is what we also call tourism. It's another definition, because you travel from here just to go and see, is this true, is this thing possible? We even have what is called security tourism, because our security agents travel from here to Israel to go and learn more about what.
So invariably we can say tourism is the umbrella of life.
Tourism is in your everyday life. You understand? So that's why I'm explaining to you that until the government understand, we even have what is called political tourism. You travel from Nigeria to go to Ghana to learn how they do their politics. Look at their administrations. Look at their political parties. Look at their system of government. All these things, their parliament. You go for all of those studies and you come back. You've done tourism. Because when you go there, you eat food. You eat their food. You will not carry your Nigerian food. You will stay in hotel there. You will not carry your Nigerian hotel. So all those things are what makes tourism the easiest way to make money. And imagine if I'm a tour guide and you come into my community and let's say there is this lake in my community that we see in those days during the war, when our parents or our grandfathers, when the British attacked them, they usually run. Once they cross that lake, the British cannot cross that lake. The white people will die inside, or just a spiritual thing you create around it, and people will travel from Israel, from US, from Britain to come and see that lake. The way you package the story is what makes it tourism. And if I'm a tour guide and every day I take, let me say, $10 from people to just come and look at it, if I have 10 people coming to that place every day and I'm making $10 from 10 people, calculate $10 times 7 days in a week. Calculate $10 a day times 30 days in a week. What are you looking for again? So these are some of the things that we see. Even in Uganda, we have what is called sex tourism. Because these guys from Europe, these women from Britain and all of that, they travel to those countries to go and experience those African men. Just to go and experience them. Because my husband cannot satisfy me. You travel to Uganda to go and meet those men and all that. So tourism is large. So until Nigeria decides to understand the potentials of tourism, until Nigeria decides to understand that tourism is the lowest hanging fruit, then you can make anything with tourism. Our independence of 1960 is the biggest tourism story. Have you traveled to Lokoja to go and see where River Niger and River Benue met together, which is the confluence? That is a major tourism. You see the map of Nigeria, you see that wide that crosses like this. You see where they meet is in Lokoja. That middle is in Lokoja. That is why it's called the confluence, where River Niger and River Benue meet together. The story of Lord Lugard alone The exploits of Lord Lugard in Nigeria, in Lokoja, in Kogi State, is a major tourism story. When Lord Lugard and his wife or girlfriend sat down from top of the mountain, Mount Panti, and looked at it and said, "Wow, this place is beautiful." The marriage of the River Niger and River Benue can be called Niger area, Flower Shore. And she looked at it, she said, "Wow, this can be called Niger area." That is where Nigeria got its name from, Niger area, River Benue and River, because every time Lord Lugard climbs on top of the mountain, Mount Panti is the highest mountain. He climbs there just to look at the movement of the slaves, how they are passing through, because the abolition of slave trade was done, and they put some codes and ethics on how you can move the slaves and all of that. And Lord Lugard usually go there, and he will use his vernacular looks at to see how they are moving the slaves, if they are suffering them or whatever. So when she traveled all the way from England to come and see her boyfriend, and they climbed on top of the mountain, she was amazed with what she saw. She was like, "Wow, this can be called Niger area." That was where Nigeria got its name from. If you go to Lokoja and you visit Mount Panti, that place where Lord Lugard was always standing, sitting down to watch the movement, is still there. When she came into Nigeria, that period, Flower Shore, to see Lord Lugard, they were operating the British, is it Voice of England or whatever, that radio, the mast, the tower that they used to transmit from Nigeria to Britain, that radio station they built that time, it's still standing. The oldest tree that Lord Lugard used to lay his back and look at movement, that tree is still there. The first bank ever built in Nigeria was built by Lord Lugard. The bank is still there. The size of the block or whatever, 6 feet by 6 feet, everything is still there. Where Nigeria, the southern and northern processorate was done, where those pacts were signed, all of that is still in Lokoja. The first ever cemetery, European cemetery, is still in Lokoja. The first primary you can go on and on with Lokoja. No. So that's tourism. So, but what are we doing to sell that?
Okay, so
whose fault?
Well, yeah. Let's look at this tourism again from another light right now. Even as a country, and as a people, a lot of people will argue that the tourism sector right now is not attractive. That's why the government doesn't want to have conversation around this area. So, because looking at all of the mismanagement across the various tourist centers across the country, so the government will want to delve into this, and this can be used as an excuse why the government want to shy away from having conversation around tourism. But here we have China coming into Nigeria at this point in time and are willing to even partner with a lot of Nigerians in terms of tourism development of the country. At this point, can we say that Nigerians are undermining some of its potential in terms of its tourism growth and development? Not the government at this time, but Nigerians due to mismanagement. Can we say Nigerians are mismanaging their tourism destinations?
So, one day I sat down and I thought, like you were thinking, I was thinking, how can I showcase tourism, Nigerian tourism offerings to the world? And I decided, I was looking for different concepts and ideas. I spoke with my team, we had different meetings, and we found out that Nigeria has a lot of tourism opportunities that is not visible to people. If you talk about mismanagement of infrastructures and all of that, mismanagement of administration and everything, then I would say you are not fair to tourism. Because, forgive me, mismanagement is like a culture in Nigeria. So why should tourism be the one to suffer mismanagement?
You saw what happened in Obudu.
No, I'm going somewhere.
Okay, please.
I'm going somewhere. Nigeria has been talking about diversification for many years, but we've been focused on only oil. The more we try to talk about diversification, we can't. We all still focus on oil. We say, okay, let us do agriculture. We see what is happening. Even local rice is becoming more expensive. So why should tourism be the one to suffer? Tourism that is just an easy going, something that you will make your money. Now, like I was saying, I was looking at how do we promote Nigerian tourism offering, and one of the things that we found out was that people say the reason why tourism is not growing in Nigeria is because of insecurity. And I'm like, okay, insecurity, but oil, where they are doing the oil, where they are mining, where they are drilling the oil is inside the bush, is inside the oceans. So how come insecurity is not disturbing the drilling of the oil? How come insecurity is not disturbing other businesses? But when you talk about tourism, you talk about insecurity. I decided that I was going to trek from Abuja to Delta State to show the world that insecurity is not the problem of tourism. That tourism, what is hindering tourism growth is still on the government. Because if you want to go to a place for tourism in anywhere around the world, if you want to go for tourism, one of the things you also need to make arrangement is for your security. You go to Ukraine today, they are fighting seriously with Russia. You go to Russia, they are fighting seriously. But guess what? A lot of people are still traveling to Ukraine. Our Nigerians are still traveling to Ukraine. So how come they are not afraid of insecurity? Or they are not afraid that once they get there, Russia will bomb them? So most times when we create stories that hampers growth. So that's what I'm saying. So I decided to trek from Abuja to Delta State, and I trekked and I came back safely after 30 days. And people were like, they didn't kidnap you. I said, nobody kidnapped me. So that means we have created a wrong story and a wrong impression about insecurity in Nigeria. Now, if what I do in promoting Nigeria all around the world, even in my status on WhatsApp and all of that, my social media handles, you can never see me post any negative story about Nigeria. The reason is because if you watch these Europeans, the Chinese, the Americans, you hear them say America first. They don't promote bad news about their country. But why do we choose to promote bad news about our country? So that is where we have the problem. So until we as a people see tourism as a major way of making free money. When I mean free money, you see somebody is on social media and he goes, cheese balls, blah blah. That person don't blow. People will want to go and see that person. Before you know, they are donating money to him. That is tourism. So Nigerians have a way of spoiling their own things. I think that is the problem. And we see other people's things are beautiful. And the role of the government plays a major opportunity for tourism to fly. What is the National Orientation Agency doing? How are you orientating Nigerians that tourism is a major fund, is a major way of making money? So those are, that, like I said in the beginning of our discussion, the government has a role to play. And we as citizens also have our role to play. So until the government sees tourism as an alternative major funding for Nigeria, trust me, there's a way Nigerians think. They will just look at it that this is where everybody is going. As long as the government is pointing this angle, everybody will go there. So that is the issue we have.
So you're saying, as it stands right now, the challenge is not that of mismanagement, but rather poor PR.
Poor PR. Now, why am I saying this? Because, like I explained, I trekked from Abuja to Delta, and when I came back, I became a hero in tourism. Now, if you remember when they were doing the End Bad Governance protests, you were talking about Obudu Land and all that. I started another campaign. I was going from different states to different states. Now, while everybody was protesting against government, some were protesting for government. Me, I was going to those various states. I visited Nasarawa, Kaduna, Plateau states, Kano. I didn't even know that those states were going to be the prime states for the violence then. But guess what? I visited every of those states, and while I was in those states, I was telling them, you can protest for government. You can also protest against government. But whatever you do, don't destroy the tourism potentials of your states. And it worked. That was how the Chinese called me and said, no, this guy, we need to take you to China. And that was how I traveled to China under the sponsorship of the Chinese government to teach me more how to promote tourism, how to make tourism be a major fund of making money. Now, I'm a Nigerian, but the Chinese saw me as somebody that can promote tourism. They took me to China. I visited 17 cities. I flew first class in all of those cities. I traveled on plane. From Nigeria to China, same. The hotels I stayed, 5-star hotels. I was taken to a lot of cities. They trained me to become a certified Chinese tea master, to promote the Chinese tea culture and the tea economy, using it as a major form of diplomacy and promoting tourism to make more money for the Chinese. Now I'm a Nigerian, but what has my government done for me?
We'll come back to what has the government done for you.
So that's
we'll come back to what the government has done for you. But then there's a twist in this partnership deal.
Yeah.
Which a lot of Nigerians are scared, even looking at the Nigerian-China relationship so far, and that is the fear that it will further lead to neo-colonialism syndrome. It will further lead to a state where Nigerian becomes like a master-servant relationship, where the superpower begins to control the lesser superpower in this particular thing, and that's what the fear is. But you have seen most of what the Chinese government is proposing to Nigeria in terms of a partnership. Are there no fears that this will actually materialize? But the fears of Nigerians will come out to play in the next 10-15 years from now.
So I visited China. I visited China a couple of times, but there's this city in China called Guangzhou. So Guangzhou is like the Nigerian arm of China, or the African. Let me use the word African arm of China. When you get to Guangzhou, you see lots of Africans are there, and a lot of those Africans that are there will have more of Nigerians. I had a meeting with Honorable Peter. Is a chairperson Nigerians Association in China. Now, and we had a discussion. He was telling me, Ambassador, do you know that in this Guangzhou that we are, the prime area of this Guangzhou, I can count more than 50 Nigerians. More than that? He has their personal phone number that are staying in houses worth over 500 million RMB. Now, those prime areas are like places like Maitama, Asoko. These are Chinese, so these are Nigerians. So Nigerians, they are staying in prime areas that even some Chinese can't even stay. Now, back home, Mr. President was in China in September, and he facilitated funding for Nigeria. And because through the FOCAC arrangement, the Chinese will usually release funding for African countries to see how they can support African countries that are doing, that have business opportunities for bilateral relationship, to see how they can strengthen business and trade and commerce ties. Now, Mr. President was able to secure funding for Nigeria to see how we can grow our agriculture, increase our trade opportunities with China through the sea. So when you are importing goods to Nigeria from China, you don't need to start going through the Israelite journey, or you need to like a one-way to Nigeria. They worked on that, and so it's easy to ship things into Nigeria. Of course, the CBN bottleneck for currency and all of that. That's why they had the currency swap arrangement and all of that. Now, Nigerians who are doing businesses in China are excited for that opportunity. Is it a Chinese fault that they give you money, that you come, okay, me and you are sitting, you tell me that, oh, Ambassador, I need 50,000 naira, I want to go and solve a problem in my village. And I look at the document, I see the discussion, we say, okay, if I borrow you this money, when are you giving me back? You say you give me so. And I say, okay, I have this money, I'm not doing anything with it. Just like the way banks give loans. And I give you the money. And you take that money, you go back to your village. Instead of you to use to go and solve the problem that you say you want to use it to solve, you go and hide that money in the bank. Not even in the bank. You hide that money underground in soccer way, put it in places, you buy luxury cars, you use it to flex yourself. Is it my fault that I give you money and you don't invest it? You didn't come to do what you said we're going to do. So it's not the Chinese fault that they lend you money and you don't do what you're supposed to do with the money. Other African countries they're not complaining the way we are complaining. So the reason why a lot of people are saying, oh, the Chinese is bad, Chinese is because you came to me to borrow money, and we had an understanding that if I give you this money to build your infrastructure, so time you will pay me back. And when you refuse to pay me back, what should I do? So it's not the fault of the Chinese that they give you money, that they help you. and you go back to your country, something to use the money to do what you're supposed to do, you will not flex the money. It's not the fault of the Chinese. So it's still bad leadership, corruption that we're still talking about. Now, what Mr. President did that a lot of us applaud him, I was in Beijing for that program where Mr. President signed the pact and all of that, even for mining and all of that, and the money and the Chinese have agreed. I think by now they have gone a milestone in releasing the funding. So what Mr. President did was, in the first time in the history of Nigeria, Nigeria now has in the National Assembly a Nigeria-China Partnership Committee is in the National Assembly. He also created in the presidency a Director General of Nigeria-China Liaison Partnership. So we have that office in the presidency that monitors the transaction of Nigeria and China. So it's not only monitored now by the Ministry of Budget and Planning or by the Foreign Affairs. So we believe that with these parameters Mr. President has put on ground will help him to make sure that this funding that has been assessed in his own regime will be able to solve the problems, and they will pay back in when they're supposed to pay. Now, backtrack to other years. You might be shocked on how much Buhari had collected. Buhari, that is Mr. Anti-Corruption. You might be shocked of how much Buhari had collected from the Chinese government, and you are asking questions: where is the money? There was an article published some time ago where we found out that over $500 million or billion naira was released from the Chinese government to Nigeria for I can't remember, but that money was not diverted by Lai Mohammed to do this NTA digital transmission, whatever. And I asked questions, I said, where are all these monies? So it's not the fault that the Chinese give you money and you don't use it to do what you're supposed to do.
So you were saying that there is no cause for alarm, even if we do what we're supposed to do.
If you do what you are supposed to do, I don't think there is any cause for alarm. Until Nigeria builds a system to hold people accountable, we'll continue like this. You don't have money to do anything. So why are you complaining? You don't have money to do something. Why? Okay, you ask yourself, why do you borrow money? You want to come to work and you don't have money, you collect money from your brother or your sister, and you tell him that in the evening when I come back I will give you back. And you come back in the evening, you refuse to pay. 2 days will pass, he refuses to pay. 3 days will pass, and you expect the person to keep you quiet? Well, those are some of the challenges we're having. It's not the fault of the Chinese, it's the fault of the Nigerian system.
Well, Phil, I understand that Phil didn't come alone this morning to the studio. He came with quite a number of students from the Chinese business school, and of course we'll have to just pick one of them to ask what's going on in the Nigerian business, in the China business school. Of course, if to know some of their policies and also some of what is being taught in the school. But at this point, I want to say, Phil, thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, when we return after this break, we'll talk with some of the students that are coming from the China business school to know what's going on in the school. Please stay with us. Global Morning continues in a moment.